My name is Horatio Bennett, and I am your moderator, which means that I am not going to be doing most of the talking because we have guests. We have got our main guest from the Hereford Hospital, Dr. Clara Wang. We have my own wife, who has a doctorate in social services, and will continue to see. And of course, we have our bestowed pastor, Bishop Lester Evans. And so we're trying to cover every area that we can. Not only, everything will lead to coping with prostate cancer. There are so many issues in one's life that can attribute to so many different things. If you have diabetes, does that mean that you'll get cancer? No, but diabetes is a gateway to cancer. I am a 14-year survivor. I've had my bout with cancer 2008. I was 64 then. And during that time, I have mastered or developed the technique in surviving prostate cancer. There is life after prostate cancer. And that is one of the fears that most of our men have. Feel that that's the reason why they really don't even want to go take the test. They don't want to hear that they have prostate cancer because they think they are going to die. But that is not the truth.
Okay, yes, there are a number of issues that men may experience, not all men, but sometimes they will go through the feelings of grief and loss. When you think about grief and loss, you think about a person who has passed away, or their relative or the loved one who has passed away, and they're suffering from grief and loss. However, just think, if you were functioning on many levels before you had prostate cancer, and then you had prostate cancer, that's a loss. That's a loss of your being able to function as you did before you had prostate cancer. There are, sometimes men feel angry. First of all, they can't accept it. Oh, me? I have prostate cancer? I've been eating right, I've been doing things I thought I was supposed to do, but I have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so that's a blow. And sometimes people become angry because they are now not functioning the way they were functioning prior to the prostate cancer experience. And then there is trying to bargain. Well, Lord, if I do this, will it go away? Or if I do that, how can I survive this prostate cancer situation? And then there's sometimes people become depressed, because again, they don't function. And sometimes we stay away from the words intimacy, but sometimes when you have prostate cancer, depending on the treatment that you receive, you will have some concerns about how intimate you are with your spouse. And sometimes, as my husband and I have talked about, he talked about he's been, as he said earlier, he's a 14-year survivor. So it was before he and I met, was with his late wife. And he's talked about the times he stayed in the basement. He tried to make sure that he wasn't near her because he felt that he might need to perform intimately. So that's something we stay away from, but that's the reality that people need to know. People need to open up and talk about that. So there are a number of different issues you might have, but you can live with prostate cancer.
Your attention and your appreciation. Dr. Wong, Dr. Clara Wong from Henry Ford Hospital.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your hospitality. Thank you, Mr. Bennett, for inviting me. Thank you, Bishop Evans, for having us here. We really do appreciate it. I feel very honored and blessed to be here. And thank you all for coming and spending your Thursday night with us. Really appreciate it. So I hope the information that is presented here will be useful to you. And I hope maybe you can even share it with those that you love. Because I think, as Mr. Bennett said earlier tonight, you know, if we can even impact one person and save one person's life, I feel like, you know, that would be a success. The presentation is a bit on the longer side, so I'm going to go through it a bit faster, in order for us to have time for questions. I think Mr. Bennett really wanted us to engage in a conversation, and so that we can answer your questions. That's the reason why we're here. Okay, so let's get started. So I am coming. So the projects. We're talking about your prostate, your health, okay? Facts that every man over 40 should know about prostate cancer. And actually, when Mr. Bennett and I were talking about this earlier, we said the idea is for you all to understand why people need to go to the doctor even when we're healthy and we don't have any symptoms. So just to back up a little bit, as I'm not sure how much you know about what the prostate is, it's part of the reproductive system. You can see here in the picture, let's see, hold on. Here is where the prostate is. So the bladder is here, and as the urine comes out, it goes through the urethra, and the prostate's here. So that's why you can imagine if the prostate gets big, or if there's a cancer, that's where the symptoms come from. So cancer is an abnormal growth of cells, and when these cells grow, they no longer respect borders. So now with the prostate tissue, instead of just behaving, and it can go and invade other nearby organs, and it also can go into, for example, the lymphatics or the blood vessels and spread to other parts of the body and grow there. That process can sometimes take quite a long time, but if it does spread to other parts of the body, that is a terminal, what we call a terminal condition. It's a fatal condition. So you can see here in the bullet points here that if we catch the cancer before it starts to spread to other parts of the body, it is curable. So we can cut it out, we can radiate it, we can eradicate it. However, once it has spread beyond the prostate, then it is no longer curable. So therefore, early detection is an important way for us to reduce deaths from prostate cancer. So here are some facts about prostate cancer. So prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in Black men in Metro Detroit. It's the second leading cause of cancer death in Black men. And Black men also have the highest likelihood of being diagnosed with prostate cancer. They're more likely, about 2 times more likely, to die from prostate cancer than, for example, Caucasians. So this is why we think this message is really important for Black men to understand.
Well, I'm very thankful to be here on this evening, and I thank God for Dr. Claire being with us and share this very vital information with us on tonight. And as she was going through her presentation, there were so many questions that I had before the presentation started that she touched on a lot of those things. But I guess the number one question that I have, and perhaps she can address this, why is it so prevalent among Black men? Is this hereditary? Is it in our genes? Is it something that we're doing? You know, you gave the comparison with the way it affects us in comparison with men of another race, like white men. Why does it affect us so much? And that would be my number one question.
That is an excellent question.
I wish I could give you 100% we know, but the fact of that matter is it's probably multiple things. Part of it is ancestry, so like you mentioned, genetics. They're trying to understand more. And actually another message maybe I would like to convey is that it's very important for the Black community. If we really want to get these answers, we have to make sure that the Black community is represented in these studies when we're trying to study the genetics, right? Actually, Black men also typically have very, very low, they're not represented in our clinical trials, in our studies. And so maybe that's another important message as well. When we're trying to get answers to questions like that, we need to make sure we have engagement of the community. So there's partially genetics. There's also evidence that there may be environmental factors as well, whether that's chronic stress, whether that's, pollution, or whether any number of environmental factors. So it might be an interplay between them. In terms of the outcomes, we do know that if you match by self-identified race, so Black versus white, if you're matched by stage and treatment, that Black men have equal outcomes. So that we know. So the biology is at least similar enough that for the same stage of cancer, if the treatments are the same, the outcomes are the same, okay? So that is important information for us to know. So now we need to make sure that the access is the same.
In the Black community is a lot of not just fear, but superstition. And those superstitions also interfere in getting diagnosed, getting treatment, getting assistance, because there's a prevailing thought that if we don't know, it won't spread. And so that's something that really needs to be addressed. The second thing is how we're raised. The majority of Black men are taught manhood from the streets. The majority, and some of these are things that we really need to talk about because we don't address these things, especially in the church. And we probably should, since more of us have an affiliation with the church than we do with anything else. And that's why I applaud you, Bishop, for allowing this forum inside your edifice. We don't talk about these type of things. The streets teach men what makes them men are three things: how many women you have, how much money you have in your pocket, and how tough you are. None of that has anything to do with communication, health, strength, and talking and confiding in your woman. So because that's how folks are being raised, it's very difficult to kind of penetrate that piece when you get a little bit older. It's so important. Arisha, we've had conversations about that. We've tried to invite men to participate, and it's very difficult because the other elephant in the room is the fact that anytime you talk about anything that deals with a sexual organ with a Black man, there's an issue because 90% of our manhood, according to the streets, is wrapped into our sexual prowess. So if that is what is defined in the streets, it's all false. However, reality is, for those who find out that way, the reality then becomes, well, if I don't have access, I'm no longer a man. If I get a rectal exam, it questions my manhood. If I talk about these issues, I'm not that strong silent type that defines Black male manhood. And then we don't talk about those other things too, about systematically what has happened in the Black community as well. So that's one of the reasons that Black men don't participate in studies. We have had, obviously, things that have happened in this country that are true. But we also are misrepresented in the number of Black physicians as well. And people have a tendency of wanting to get information from people who look like them. So it's really important that our churches, that men in the community, that a rightful place for a Black man in the community would be that leader in the community would also have the same kind of conversations and steer away from the fear factor and the superstitions that many of us were raised with.
Hello,
Thanks for inviting us here. I want to ask 3 questions at least. The prostate issue that I'm concerned about, that I had a bad experience with one exam. I said to myself, never go through that again. For nothing. I accept the test, the colonoscopy, my heart, or what have you, but that related to prostate, I refuse. I would die with cancer rather than go through that exam because that traumatic experience. My second question is, do you have a way to test the blood instead of that PRA? The third question, have you tried, myself, I have a problem with prostate. If I don't use the Vaseline, you go into my rectum. Okay, I use the Vaseline to lubricate the scrotum. If I run, it pulls. If I play ball, it pulls. Do you have any type of exam that's not, painful for that?
I just want to say, I took my stepfather to the doctors, see a urologist, and his numbers, he said his numbers were high. And he said, well, he's probably got cancer. He's 92. I think he's probably 90 when I took him. And I said, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? He said, well, nothing. He says, I don't want to put him through surgery at his age. So I'm like, how do I care for him? If a person has cancer at his age, he's not in pain, he doesn't complain, and the doctor says, well, I don't need to see him again. So I mean, you just let the cancer go on, I guess, at his age. But addressing the other things too.
I want to encourage the women, the wives and significant others and sisters or the significant others to encourage your husband, your man per se, and to let them know, I love you, I want you to be around, and whatever we have to do, we're going to do to make it so you are above ground. And it's important to find out that, or tell your person, there's more than one way to make love. There's a difference between having sex and a difference between making love. And because what your fears are, you may be scared to tell your wife or your significant other. So we have to, as women, to encourage the man to, what are your fears about this? Get them out in the open. Don't let it be a mystery, because if it does, it festers and it causes more aggravation. So what is your fear about this? What is your fear about that? Get it out in the open, talk about it, and reinforce that I love you. I want you to be above ground, not below ground. And there's so many pamphlets and books out there to let you know how to make love to your mate. And it doesn't just have to be one way. Penetration is only one way. Sometimes you can be so erotic just by holding hands, taking a walk with each other, by caressing different parts of the body. It doesn't have to be exactly. So those things are important.
I believe we in the Black community didn't really talk about our health issues, like Pastor Evans mentioned about he didn't know his father had the heart attack. And so, you know, you just knew your parent or grandparent was sick. You didn't know, and you didn't ask questions because it was none of your business, really, you know. But I found out once I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I sent off for my grandfather's death certificate. And when I read his death certificate, that's when he died from prostate cancer. So it kind of made sense to me. And I also learned.
One was, how many times should I get a PSA test? Last year, 2021, I had a PSA test, and I went to my primary care physician today, before I came here, funny enough. And I just knew I was going to have the exam that he was talking about. And she was like, no, you don't need that, don't worry about it. And I was like, well, should I get a test? And she was like, no, you have one, you're not in the age group. And to come here tonight and to see how many people die from it, how many people get it every year, I want to get the test every year. So for her to turn me away, I'm like, ugh, that's kind of, it's weird for me. Maybe she does have all my stuff. But at the same time, if it's that prevalent in Black men, I want to have it just to be safe. And I'm okay with the rectal exam, whatever you got to do to keep me here on planet Earth. Let's go. I don't care how I'm labeled or anything like that. But I did want to hit a few points, like I think the issue with Black men is trust. We don't trust. We have a history of being betrayed, so we're cautious to trust doctors. Another thing I said was access to doctors. A lot of us don't have access to doctors, and I believe it comes to piggyback on what you said a little bit. We do what our fathers did. And a lot of our fathers didn't go because when they were coming up in the era, they didn't go to the doctor. They didn't have insurance to go. It wasn't available or readily accessible to us at every corner. But lastly, what I want to ask is there something that men, or a place that we can go, or something that we can look at to see like all of the checks that we should get every year? Because I stumbled upon a PSA test last year, but I need to know what I need to stumble upon next year to make sure that I'm fit overall, because prostate cancer is one, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other things that we as men can get in front of before we're behind it and it's too late. Because like you said, if you can pay attention to it and watch it, we can beat it and we don't have to leave early.
So, as I mentioned, certainly Black men we know are at higher risk, and the other important risk factor to know is family history. So just like you said, if you have a family member with prostate cancer, we've heard already, personal experience, that is a very important risk factor. And if you have a strong family history, like I said, we reduce the age. Or let's say if you knew your father was diagnosed with cancer at like age 45, you could even argue that we need to find it early. So even start talking to your doctor maybe 35 or definitely by 40, because you want to find it as early as possible. So if you have a history of early onset prostate cancer in your family, then I would even be more vigilant about screening. So.